and other pieces of utility and disruption, backed by a quick clock and some mana denial, it has a very favorable matchup there. Even though if you looked at the deck list initially, you would say, well, obviously, Emmer Cole and Griselbrand are going to run right over this thing.
The opponent is Phillip Braverman, who is on Miracles, a player that we do see quite a bit on the Open Series when we do Legacy coverage, a deck that he's been playing for some time. And he's matched up against Craig Wescoe playing Death and Taxes. You have to imagine if Braverman's familiar with Wescoe, he knows exactly what Wescoe is up to. And we'll see if Miracles is able to take down what many consider to be a pretty good matchup for him.
If you get caught off guard by Craig Wescoe's white creature strategy, you have no one to blame but yourself.
This is probably true. Here's a Sensei's Divining Top for Braverman. Round number 11 underway here. Wescoe probably going to play a land. That taps for white mana. It's actually Rishadan. The follow-up is a Phyrexian Revoker.
And this is a very classic Death and Taxes opening here of a mana disruption land backed by a creature that provides both a clock and some amount of disruption, trying to squeeze your opponent's total resources.
Now, Braverman's deck, let's take a look at it. A little bit different from what we've seen so far. Some players, again, opt to go with creatures, some without. He does have some, but not the suite that we're used to. A Snapcaster Mage from Dylan clicking in 2 copies of Stoneforge Mystic along with a Batter Skull here. So, a little bit different.
The Brian Brondwin school of having a Stoneforge Mystic package in your Miracles deck. Personally, not something I'm a big fan of. I like to play exclusively off the top of the deck with this sort of thing, but there is no arguing with the power level of Stoneforge Mystic. In some matchups, it's your best card.
Going to spin the top there in response to the Revoker. You have to imagine the Revoker will be naming top, and it does. So got to shut that thing down before Wescoe does pass the turn back. Braverman will draw a card. It's a copy of Flooded Strand. That's going to come into play before passing the turn back. Braverman does have a copy of Pyroblast in his hand. That one's not so good here.
And we've seen this a couple times with decks like Affinity and Death and Taxes. There are just a lot of main deck Pyroblasts in this room. And I'm sure part of Craig's success so far this weekend has been running into opponents with just main deck Red Blast they can't cast.
An attack for 2 will put Braverman down to 17. Wescoe going to try to figure out what he wants to do on the next turn. He will play a Plains, pass the turn back.
Now, an unfortunate thing for Craig here, it looks like he has a lot of copies of Swords to Plowshares in his hand. Phillip's list is giving him some targets, but Craig does need to keep the pressure up. And this one copy of Phyrexian Revoker will not be enough pressure.
This is a Terminus to take care of the Revoker, so bottoms up for that creature. Terminus is done resolving, which means the top is back on. Braverman going to sacrifice his Flooded Strand to go down to 16 in the process. Search up a land. We'll see if it'll be basic or non-basic. And perhaps a spinning of the top will take place.
He's cracking now. I'm assuming he wants to go and take a spin. If he's spinning now, I imagine he's on the hunt for land number 4.
Yeah. Does have 3 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor once he gets to 4 mana, so doesn't take the creatures to get the job done, does have the lands. And the Planeswalkers, as Wescoe will draw a card.
And the preemptive fetching there from Phillip, probably a concession to a potential Aven Mind Sensor.
Smart.
Which these lists sometimes play. I believe Craig is playing 0 this weekend. Fallen out of favor a little bit.
Serra Avenger, the 3/3 flyer. See Braverman looking at a Spell Pierce among other options. There's a second port there from Wescoe. And we'll pass the turn back. Braverman's going to spin. Take a look at 3. We'll set it back in an order that he likes. Jace the Mind Sculptor among those cards.
Serra Avenger just a really nice threat for this weekend because I think it matches up really well against the card Young Pyromancer, which is all over the place.
Port's going to slow down the Tundra. Braverman will draw a copy of Swords to Plowshares.
Really important for Braverman to find here, especially because he has Snapcaster Mage in hand. So he can start really squeezing Craig's creature base.
Wescoe will draw a card. That's an attack here for 3. And it looks like Craig will be gaining 3. He's up to 23 now due to the swords. It's a Vial. There's a Caracas. As you mentioned, he has drawn quite a few copies of Swords of Plowshares, 3 of them to be exact.
But fortunately for Craig, now that he has a Vial, he can spend most of his mana just porting Phillip, who's missing some land drops here, and maybe finagle through the Snapcaster Mage by keeping Phillip's mana pinned down, sneaking above the runes into play, and then having some protection.
Port's going to slow down the two Tundras. The draws to Jason Mind Sculptor. Seems as though as we are a long way away from that. Wescoe going to put the die on top of his deck, make sure the vial does tick up. We'll see what he draws this turn. Didn't get a great look at it. It's a Sword of Fire and Ice. All right. It's a card that can turn things around.
I don't know if he's going to want to equip that on the Mother of Runes necessarily, because I think he wants to keep that up and find a second threat. But the sword is a lot of damage.
Well, if he can get a shot in, I imagine he will take it. The question is, does he want to cast the sword now or no? And it looks like he does, and so he will. That's going to resolve. Craig with his port at the ready. Going to spin the Caracas. Will Braverman. Looks like this may be in response to the sword. We'll see.
And I think Craig doing this in part because he can still port Phillip and keep him off of Jace the Mind Sculptor. And he's not really worried about any other proactive threat. If Phillip spends his turn casting Counterbalance, even if he finds a second blue mana, which is no guarantee given how this has been going so far, Craig has Aether Vial in play, so that's not that big of a deal.
Arid Mesa is the draw there for Braverman, so he's finally found a fourth mana. He'll put that into play. And we'll see exactly what he wants to do with it, which is nothing just yet. A Vial activation here from Wescoe. Mother of Runes is in. We'll see for how long. It doesn't look like very. Braverman's going to sacrifice his Arid Mesa. It looks like we might see a Snapcaster Mage and Source of Plowshares right away.
There's no way that Phillip can allow this Mother of Runes to get into play, because then all of his spot removal doesn't work for the rest of the game, and Craig has the sword already. So if Craig's able to get a threat to stick, that can easily win the game by itself.
And there is old Snappy. And there's the swords. So Craig will look at his 3 copies of swords and realize, well, finally I've got a target. Wescoe will untap. It's time to tick the vial up to 2. And he'll draw a card. Didn't get a great look.
I think it's a Batter Skull.
See if Wescoe has any interest in tapping out for that powerful card.
Gotta get something going.
Yeah, looks like the answer is yes. Braverman gonna take a look at his hand. See if he has a Force of Will, or at least act as though he does, excuse me.
I think this is going to line up pretty poorly for Craig, because this is a window for Phillip to get Jace the Mind Sculptor in play, bounce the Germ Token, and then start doing Jace things past that point.
Perhaps run away with things.
But I don't think Craig has the option of saying go here. His hand's so bad, you just got to cast something and hope it's good.
And there is the Batter Skull. We'll go back Braverman's way. Braverman will draw. It actually is a copy of Force of Will. Now he's got the protection. Looks like he has 2 copies of Force of Will and just decided not to cast one. Perhaps it is a counterbalance in his hand, but either way, Jace the Mind Sculptor is going to come to play. And he looks to be in the driver's seat, does Braverman. Down to 2. Germ Token needs to leave, and it will. And Braverman will pass the turn back, leaving Snapcaster Mage back on defense, as Wescoe will very smartly activate the vial. Nothing will come in. And just pass the turn back.
I don't know how much value there is to leaving the Snapcaster Mage on defense, because if Craig does have something to vial in, he can simply put the sword on it. But Phillip probably also not really looking to win through damage at this point, so not a huge cost.
Source of Plowshares will take care of the Snapcaster Mage, and Lando will come down for Wescoe. He's got 2 swords left in his hand, and on the upkeep, we'll see some port activations. The thing here, if you are Braverman, is you always have to be scared of the vial, because anything can slide out of that and go after your Jace. Wescoe not willing to tap anything here. He says, in the draw step, I will actually tap your lands down.
The reason Craig is doing this is because if he ports during the upkeep, Phillip can add mana and use it to Divining Top and set up for a better draw. So what Craig wants to do instead is allow Phillip to draw the card, then port him, so his draw is not improved this turn by the Divining Top.
Well, 2 board activations will resolve. Braverman will continue. He's already drawn the card for the turn, of course. Now it's time to brainstorm. So a Stoneforge, a Counterbalance, and a Force of Will.
And Phillip cannot put those 2 Pyroblasts back fast enough and shuffle up his deck, I'm assuming, with this Stoneforge Mystic.
2 mana. There it is. Trigger there. Equipment coming. I have to imagine it's going to be Batterskull. There that is. So Braverman is starting to take things over here. Wescoe still got plenty of draw steps to maybe turn things around, get the Jace off the table. He does have a Source of Plowshares for the Stoneforge Mystic, so that's not going to get the slide of Batterskull in right away. So there's still a lot of fight left here.
Absolutely. As bad as this is going for Craig, if he finds something like a Sarah Venture that he can put in through the vial, if Phillip can't kill it, well, then the sword goes on it and kills Jace, and then the Batterskull goes on it and kills Phillip. So this is still a winnable game.
There's a Force of Will. Removing Spell Pierce to take care of the Source of Plowshares. Braverman saying, I would like to keep my Stoneforge Mystic, thank you.
And also, because there's a vial in play, there's not a lot for Phillip to Force of Will going forward.
Craig's draw for the turn was a copy of Stoneforge Mystic.
He still has one piece of equipment in his list. He does have a Minek Umezawa's Jete alongside his Batterskull and his sword.
So something to still dig out there, and he can just build a monster. Wescoe going to go reaching for maybe Swords number 3. Oh, there's an attempt. Oh, Braverman Force of Will again. Well, he's thinking about it.
I don't mind Force of Willing here because what else are you going to Force of Will?
I also like to keep it consistent. If you're going to Force a Will once, I would Force a Will again.
Yeah.
Like either you're protecting that card or you're not.
You were willing to Force of Will a low-value card in the matchup because of the way the game looks. You need to run it back. Yep.
That's what Phillip will do. Removing a counterbalance. Craig is going to put this Stoneforge Mystic into play. Going to search up a Jite. Somebody's going to suit up a monster. See Braverman's hand right now. There's a Batterskull, along with a Jace and a counterbalance. So still a lot of powerful cards over there for Braverman.
Though Wescoe, with his objectively way less powerful cards, does have some hope of pushing through all this.
Yep.
You can see why he likes these decks.
He always finds a way.
Phillip has cast all the good cards so far. Craig can still win.
How dare you talk about Sarah Avenger underneath the pile like that?
In fairness, Rashad Port's done a lot of work.
Has it?
It is a challenging card for these decks, these control decks that don't have Wasteland.
Yeah, that's what it typically does. It is my favorite land. So I think that says more about me
Spike.
than the card. Yeah. Yeah. Braverman going to put the Batterskull in and now draw a card, and he will brainstorm with Jace. So 3 cards coming. Terminus is 1. Top is 2. Brainstorm is 3. 2 cards will have to go back here for Braverman. Let's see if Terminus will be one of them. It looks like the answer is no, at least at this point.
I'm not sure what the merit is of keeping the Terminus in hand when you have a Divining Top, so you can always float it to the bottom 3 or the middle 3 if you're not looking to draw it right away. Terminus in hand, especially against an opponent who's porting you a bunch, does not seem very good.
And Braverman did just put Terminus back. That's the top card of his deck right now. Looks like he's going to deploy another top here. Perhaps. He also has a Brainstorm he can cast, and he will. So he's going to get 3 cards deeper. The third card's a mystery, of course. It's a Scalding Tarn, so that's a good third card, as that'll give him the ability to set 2 cards back and then shuffle them away.
So it looks like Phillip keeping the Terminus in hand.
Yeah, I think because he's gonna sacrifice the fetch land now.
Yep.
He's gonna shuffle the 2 cards away that he doesn't like. And then the next turn, he can Brainstorm and put the Terminus back on top of his deck, though this does open up a window here for Wescoe to take advantage.
Well, I'm not sure what he's trying to preempt here by fetching right now. There's not a huge rush, because he could always just use the Divining Top to draw the Terminus next turn.
Sure.
And still fetch and do whatever it is he wants to do.
Probably going to play a top now. Yep. So 2 tops in play. I'm just going to pass the turn back, but the window is open here for Craig. See if he can take advantage of it. He will draw a card. It's just a boring old Plains. Though I have a feeling you approve of these Plains.
Beta is nice.
Yes.
Wescoe's a class act.
See, that's a good investment by Craig because he knows he's going to use them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Here's an attack. Vigilance, of course, due to Batterskull. and Braverman will block his Batterskull token. So both players will gain some life here in this exchange. Craig will gain more than Braverman will due to the sword, along with the power and toughness on the Stoneforge Mystic. Braverman going to spin the top here. Flooded Strand, all the Scalding Tarn and an Island of the cards that he's looking at.
You can see how powerful Divine Top is in this deck because Phillip's just looking at so many cards.
On the upkeep, Wescoe's going to port something. Braverman says, I will activate my Stoneforge Mystic, put my Batterskull back into play. I kind of roadblock you for a little while, or at least try to.
The problem is that Wescoe has the Jitte at hand. Yeah. So the next turn you can equip the Jitte, kill the Stoneforge Mystic, and stop all these shenanigans.
To Brainstorm. More lands here for Braverman. Fortunately for him, some of them do fetch, so he can clear some of this nonsense away.
And Wescoe's doing all this having drawn very few creatures.
Yes.
If 3 swords this game.
Yeah, if his top of... And he got 2 Force of Wills for his trouble out of those cards.
True. The Mighty Mother of Runes is the draw. Craig looks like he's going to deploy Numazawa's Jitte. And this is what you talked about. This is the plan now.
Yeah. The play that Phillip ran last turn no longer will work, I assume, because Wescoe will take care of the Stoneforge Mystic post-combat.
There's an attack. He's created a monster. It's got a lot of equipment on it. A man with Pro Tour top 8 with Stoneforge Mystic at Pro Tour San Diego many moons ago. He knows exactly how this baby works. But back then, he was searching up the very trusty machete.
Yes.
How things have changed.
Although, what Craig has in play was pretty close to a legal standard deck, you know? Not really that far off.
I suppose that's true.
It's a different sword. You don't have Jitte, but it's pretty close.
Craig going to go porting here. You saw him deploy the Mother of Runes. Unfortunately for him, it seems that Mr. Braverman has a Terminus to play, and he does. So Terminus will come down. Mother of Runes and Stoneforge Mystic, those are going to go away. The equipment will stay in play. And for Braverman, it's time to Jace. A little Fate Seal action.
It's tough to transition to the Fate Sealing, though. I don't mind it, just because Craig has so many draws. It's not like he has to lock him out of one particular card. Every creature is problematic at this stage.
Spinning at the top. Take a look at a couple of cards very quickly. Braverman did not like what he saw, so he will sacrifice the Flooded Strand. Go down to 21 and get a land out of his deck. There's just a basic Plains. Of course, searching up basic lands in this matchup, as Wasteland is a thing to be worried about here. Braverman's hand, 2 fetch lands, Scalding Tarn and Flooded Strand, along with another copy of Jace the Mind Sculptor. So, we'll see if the top 3 cards of his deck help any, as there's his land for the turn, just going to pass the turn back. Wescoe will draw a card. His top card went to the bottom last turn, so we'll see if he's able to draw a nice one here.
And any 2-mana creature is going to be awesome here.
There's a Vial. That's a Seraph Venture. That's a 2-mana creature, my friend. Equip. Does he want to equip again, or does he want to leave mana up here for Schadenports? Looks like he wants to equip again, put you to the test. Braverman is going to spin the top. Somebody's looking for a Terminus or Swords to Plowshares.
He, in fact, may sacrifice this Tarn here to get another look at it.
May be worth it.
Unless he found an answer in the top 3.
Well, he's drawing a card. So it looks like he's happy enough with what he's found. Now he'll sacrifice the Scalding Tarn. Braverman going to find an island.
And this is what I mentioned about the Fate Seal route, being a little troubled.
Yep.
I don't really mind the play, but Craig just has so many interchangeable knuckleheads that can pick up these swords and Batterskulls that it's hard to lock out his draw step entirely.
Well, it makes a little more sense why Braverman was willing to draw his card. He's going to cast a Dig Through Time, a 1-of in his Miracles deck, a card that is slowly but surely making its way into Legacy, and its power is undeniable.
I don't mind a little bit of this going on in the deck. I think because the power level of the deck is by spinning cards on the top of the deck with Divining Top, a lot of your cards aren't really that valuable to be placing in your hand. But as a 1-of, I mean, this is an incredible card, and it looks like Phillip's found 2 copies of Swords to Plowshares for his trouble.
Not the worst Dig Through Time I've ever seen against the mono-white strategy. Braverman will add those 2 swords. That'll also clear the top of his deck for Sensei's Divining Top as well. So Some small minor interactions there, but some good ones nonetheless, as there is a sword to take care of the Sarah Avenger. Wescoe will gain a whole bunch of life, but Jace doesn't care about your life total, as that will tick up. Braverman will take a look at the top card. We'll see where it's going to go. Looks like it's headed to the bottom. There's a Flooded Strand. That'll give him a way to clear the top cards if he doesn't like them with top. And just a passing the turn back to Wescoe, whose draw is a mystery. Did not get a great look, but he very quickly passes the turn back, so Braverman will spin the top. Sensei's Divine Top and a Brainstorm among the cards that Braverman is looking at. He's happy with this configuration. He will sacrifice the Flooded Strand, go down to 19, dig a land out of his deck, and likely spin the top again.
Selection, selection, selection.
Absolutely. That's what this deck does so very well. He's got his win condition in play already. Just needs to get it up high enough.
You can see why the informed players are willing to force a Will Divining Top. Because once this is going, you know, Phillip's draw step quality versus Craig's draw step quality, it's been stark, the difference between the two.
Time to return Batter Skull. Wescoe going to port a couple times here. He will play on, though time is certainly a consideration now. It looks like Craig may lose this game, and neither of these decks, close very quickly. Preordain will be cast here by Braverman. He knows the top card, so he'll put him on the bottom very quickly. He'll draw a mystery card. It's a copy of Swords of Plowshares. Not a bad mystery to draw. Time to Fate Seal. Take a look. Leave it on top. Got a feeling someone's drawing a land next turn.
Probably. Maybe a Swords of Plowshares.
Perhaps even a second Aether Vial for his troubles. Wescoe will play the plains that I assume Braverman does know about, and we'll go back Braverman's way. A quick spin. So Wescoe will double port him again, take care of 2 Tundras. Jace is going to go up yet again. It's up to 10. Leave that on top as well. Braverman with the counterspell. Wescoe wants to take a look at Jace, see exactly what it takes to get to its ultimate. The answer is 12.
2 copies of Caracas.
Well, that's just lucky.
Not a pleasant way to go out, the old Jace Fate Sealing.
Probably not, no. Okay, so I want your Caracas this time. I want to let him know where he stands.
Right.
I have 3 of them. I'm tapping one of yours. Jace is going to go up. Take a look at the top. And going to leave it there, it looks like. Braverman going to go reaching for maybe a counterbalance here. Bunch of mana instead. Going to redeploy Batter Skull. Yeah, I actually like this play of not doing that. Just doesn't seem necessary.
Yeah. You're winning with a Fate Seal, so.
Here's a Rising Canopy. Draw a card, copy a Wasteland. And that's going to do it. Phillip Braverman going to win game number 1 here over Craig Wescoe. Miracles up a game over Death and Taxes. Looks like a difficult matchup for Wescoe, but we'll take a look at his sideboard and see what he's got.
He's got a Grafdigger's Cage, a Rest in Peace, 2 Absolute Laws, 2 Aethersworn Canonist, 2 Enlightened Tutor, a Sun Lance, 2 copies of Cataclysm, 2 copies of Council's Judgment, 2 copies of Containment Priest. I think the Council's Judgments are upgrades over Swords to Plowshares because they can also go after other things in play. And I think the 2 Cataclysms are good for this matchup as well. So I think this is going to be a pretty straight up swap. Probably just going to see, maybe not all the Swords of Plowshares leave the deck because Phillip has shown Stoneforge Mystic. So Craig may want to leave in a few as a concession to that. But removing some of the creature removal for Cataclysms and Council's Judgments.
Take a look at the other side of the thing. I've got a Spell Pierce, 2 copies of Red Elemental Blast, a Hydro Blast, a Blue Elemental Blast. All these counter spells. 2 Rest in Peace, 2 Stoneforge Mystic, another Batter Skull, a Vendilion Click, Entreat the Angels, a copy of Wear a Tear, and 2 copies of Pyroclasm. Gotta like Pyroclasm here.
I like Pyroclasm. I like going up to additional copies of Stoneforge Mystic. I think the second Batter Skull is fun to bring in here as well. Although I think that's typically for control matchups. I think that he wants the ability to just get Batter Skull into play, have as much redundancy with Stoneforge Mystic as possible.
I do like the Singleton Wear Tear here too.
Yeah, Wear Tear seems really nice.
A lot of nice juicy options here as Wescoe does have 3 equipment and sometimes they even bring in enchantments too. So a lot of nice options here for Braverman and what looks to be a pretty positive matchup for him, assuming he can get it done in time.
Terminus is just a tough card for Death and Taxes to play against.
Absolutely.
A lot of the other sweepers of the format, like Supreme Verdict, even things like Pyroclasm, your Rashad Imports and Wastelands and Thalias can keep people off casting those kind of cards. Terminus is just too efficient, and that's a big problem in the matchup.
What's interesting is how Wescoe's able to adapt here. An okay draw, 3 Swords of Plowshares, of course not what he's looking for, but he did have some disruption there in the ports. Wastelands didn't show up until a little late. Do wonder if this is a matchup he's okay with playing against. It is a little bit more, I think it's closer than it appears. You would think that the mono white deck that tries to disrupt Miracles would be a bad matchup for Death and Taxes, but they oftentimes find a way.
Well, you can see there, even as bad as things were going for Craig in that game, there were a couple spots where if he finds a creature, he might be able to steal the game just by loading it up with a bunch of equipment. So even though by the end of things, the game was a runaway, Craig's hand was bad for the most part, and he still wasn't that far off of taking it.
Braverman going to send it back very, very quickly. Looks like Wescoe's happy with his hand. So down to 6 here for Phillip, as we are about to be under 24 minutes here left in the match. The pace will have to quicken here for Wescoe if he wants to get it done.
It's going to be tough, and both of these players already with a draw.
Yep. For Craig, a very, very accomplished player. Again, a Pro Tour champion. It's funny because I feel like most people forget that.
Yeah, it's weird. Again, I think it's part of his personality. Craig is just not really out there loudly promoting himself or screaming about the decks he's built. He just goes about his business, you know?
A member of Team TCG player along with Ari Lax. Those two both Pro Tour champions. Steve Rubin, two-time Open Series champion. And a lot of other players with some nice accomplishments on that team.
Yeah, I mean, check out the resume. I mean, Wescoe and Lax on that team, both with Pro Tour wins in recent memory. Not the most heralded team, but the results speak for themselves.
It's another vial to start it up. It's going to take up to 1. You see Braverman with the Scalding Tarn. There's the Plains. This is a Stoneforge Mystic. Though you can see the Pyroclasm in Braverman's hand.
And Craig is casting this in part because he has a second Stoneforge Mystic in hand. So if he's able to trade this with a Force of Will, it is great for him.
Source of Plowshare is the draw here for Braverman.
And if Phillip is just going here to cast a Stoneforge Mystic on turn 2 with no protection, I really like that. Maybe not necessarily game 1, but post-board he can pretty safely assume Craig is lighter on creature removal. Maybe Source of Plowshare has been removed from the deck entirely, and he may be able to win this game just straight up with Batterskull.
The fake out.
No reason not to.
Let him know. You better be paying attention with my vial, buddy. Both players with Stoneforge Mystics and Batterskulls. There's a port there for Wescoe.
So Craig can get pretty creative here. For example, he can use Stoneforge Mystic to put the Batterskull in play, and then vial in a Revoker named Stoneforge Mystic.
I love it. I think that's what he might do. Bingo. Well, you asked for it. You got it.
Sweet.
It's pretty sweet, isn't it?
I like it.
Braverman going to draw a card. That's not a Terminus. Braverman taking a look here. Again, he's got a Pyroclasm and a Source of Plowshare, so he can get pretty creative too. Going to play a Scalding Tarn as his land for the turn. Actually has a copy of Terminus in his hand.
Another problem with the Death and Taxes has in the matchup here, even though they have a lot of the same tools, Phillips are better. Batterskull for Craig is just another threat in a sea of threats that Phillip can sweep up, whereas Phillips' Batterskull for Craig is this very annoying life-gaining threat that's hard to attack through and requires a lot of resources to answer. Not all Stoneforge Mystics are created equal.
That doesn't seem quite fair.
Phillip gets a lot more action out of his in this matchup than Craig does.
Pyroclasm. Sweeping away plenty of threats. However, someone is left with a Batterskull token. Back to Wescoe will go. He'll leave his vial at 2 and draw a card. Oh, baby. A copy of Cataclysm.
That is delightful.
I could not be happier, as that is one of my favorite Magic cards. First things first, an attack.
I've always liked Armageddon better in this slot for this deck. If you're going to get miracles, just get them.
No way. You get to keep stuff.
But you get to keep stuff when you cast Armageddon, too.
Fine. Fine. Getting would be pretty healthy right
It's funny,
now.
someone made the same argument with me recently. They're like, well, with Cataclysm, you get really fancy. You know, you like get to keep Spirit of the Labyrinth because it's an enchantment. I'm like, when you cast Armageddon, you keep everything. You keep all your creatures. You don't have to pick and choose which ones.
Wescoe, I think, maybe considering casting it here.
Well, he does have a vial, so he's got an edge on resources.
He would lose his Batter Skull, though. It's kind of a bummer.
How good is this Batter Skull going to be anyway? I suspect not very good.
It's tough to say. He's just going to pass the turn back, maybe waiting for a better spot.
Well, if he gets a threat into play, then it becomes a lot more attractive to cast the Cataclysm. As it stands, he would be banking on drawing something before Phillip does, and he might be able to do better with this Cataclysm.
Yeah, with the vial here. There's Stoneforge Mystic. It's time to search.
My issue with Cataclysm versus Armageddon, now maybe you want Cataclysm for different matchups, and that's fine, is if your opponent gets to keep a Divining Top and a land and they're floating a Terminus, for example, it's just like kind of stinky.
It can be.
Or can be a little stinky.
Yeah.
Keep a counterbalance, keep a top, keep a land, float a Terminus.
Sorry about that, Whammy.
Yeah.
Take a draw. Wasteland in the house.
Good draw here for Craig.
He wants to fire off that Cataclysm. The question is, when do I do it? Do I play more lands? Maybe yes, maybe no.
He doesn't want to play any lands that he can avoid playing because they're all valuable leftovers for the Cataclysm.
Take that, Volcanic Island. Craig says, it's your turn. Port you. Let you draw. Copy of the top. Time to play it. And this as well. Pass the turn back, will Braverman. Wescoe. Gonna activate a Stoneforge Mystic. Put a sword into play. Perhaps he's off of the Cataclysm strategy entirely, as he would have to lose some of these artifacts. Ports the draw. Craig gonna suit up. And hiya! Braverman gonna sacrifice the Floodstream.
Looking for help. Swords to Plowshares or a Terminus. But even that's a good exchange for Craig here.
Probably doesn't hate that.
It's a lot of resources on Phillip's side. Try to get the Stoneforge off the table, and Craig's got many more creatures left in the deck.
Spin it to win it, Will Braverman. Stoneforge Mystic Force Will among the cards he's looking at. He's happy with his config. He will take some damage, 3 of them. 2 from the trigger probably as well, so he's going to take 5, and Wescoe will get to draw a card. Craig with Thalia. He can file that in if he'd like to. And it looks like he's okay with doing that, so there is the Garden of Thraben. And Wescoe happy to pass his turn back and get to work with Port. See you later, Tundra. Braverman draws. Copy of Stoneforge Mystic. It's in, as is the Flooded Strand he played. A very quick search here for Phillip. He knows exactly what he wants. It's a Batter Skull. And so, of course, give him a shuffle here for the top 2.
Though he's very behind in the race right now. Craig's going to be first to market, getting Batter Skull into something if he's feeling so inclined.
We're heading back Wescoe's way. And again, it's this delicate balance of, do I want to play my lands? Do I want to play my Port? Looks like he's going to play a Plains. Suit up the Batter Skull. And it's time to give the beatdowns. Quick block here for Wescoe, as his draw for the turn was Flickerwisp, so perhaps the Vial will move up to 3 next turn. We'll see. Braverman's going to spin.
Great measuring of threats here from Wescoe. Once he gets his equipment into play, he does not have to add that much to the board. Make things really problematic. And now Phillip's Batter Skull doesn't even really mean anything. And isn't even castable right now because of the Thalia.
A Scalding Tarn into play. Thalia doing work.
Oh yeah. Alongside these ports and wastelands. Pressure coming from a bunch of different directions.
Vial up to 3. Caracas, a little protection for Thalia now. See if Wescoe wants to play that. He does. And see, this entire game, if you're a fan of white strategies, which a lot of people know that I am, this is how you play a white deck.
Yep.
It would have been so easy on that turn where Craig had the Cataclysm. Where he's, oh, yeah, I'm going to get him. I'm going to get him. I'm going to get 3 of his lands. Oh, baby. I'm going to show him who the boss is here. I'm going to probably lose my vial or equipment. Who cares?
And in fairness, that's what I want to do.
Yeah,
I want to just get
I'm right there with you.
I want to get him.
Show him who the boss is.
Yeah. It's not my deck to not cast.
Yeah. And I drew, it's a sideboard card. I drew it. Speaking of cards drawn, and Entreat the Angels here for 4. That'll change the game. Wescoe will have to worry about this a little bit. This is actually be, excuse me, it'll be for 3 because of Thalia. So there's a block there, there's a block there. Of course, some blocking needs to be done because the attack is lethal. And let's go with this tricky little Flicker Wisp. We'll get an Angel out of the way.
It's the issue here is his last threat. Now, a hedge that Craig has is he can leave the Caracas up. So even if a sweeper comes off of Phillip's deck, he can return the Thalia to his hand and have something to rebuild with.
Yeah, but this turn doesn't end up so bad for Craig. What I think the exchange is, of course, Thalia's going to win in combat because of first strike. Craig will gain some life. He'll lose Stoneforge Mystic, the 2 Angels will stay. And he's able to, whenever he'd like, Flicker Wisp away an Angel, and then actually be able to attempt to attack for lethal the next turn due to the Sword of Fire Ice and the equipping. So even though Entreat the Angels is powerful,
he also just might snap off a Cataclysm here.
This isn't a bad spot to do it in. Oh, Daddy's home.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like what I see here.
Oh, yeah.
Braverman would like to take a look. Well, Phillip, you get to choose some stuff, and you get to lose some other stuff. And again, this is a masterclass of how to pick your spots when playing a white aggro deck. Now, is Craig going to lose some stuff here? Yeah, he will. He's going to lose a Battered Skull and a Sword of Fire and Ice. Doesn't matter. Phillip has 1 land.
And then the Flicker Wisp that he can vial through takes care of the Angel.
And oh, by the way, if Phillip draws Terminus for the turn, that's cool.
Yeah, also, Craig has a port left over.
Yep.
So,
yeah, he's going to Flicker Wisp that out of
ding,
play.
ding, 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 ding.
Somebody has found the winning combination. Craig Wescoe going to win game number 2 here over Phillip Braverman. The problem there is what you see ticking down in the middle of your screen at home. 1150, 49, 48. Who can finish the match?
And I think a draw at this stage is knocking both of these players out of top 8.
It is horrible.
So, X1-1, I think, is the record players are striving for.
Yeah.
And you can see both players shoveling pretty fast here. They're aware.
If you want to learn how to play great Magic with linear white decks, this is the guy right here. He is, for my money and for most, the best in the world at this. And it's always very telling to me, too, that when you play against Craig Wescoe, you know exactly what he's going to do. He's been doing it for some time now, be it green-white, be it in the Boros decks that he plays. He'll play white-black tokens in Modern. He's playing Death and Taxes here in Legacy. If there's a white deck to play in Vintage, he probably knows what it is.
Yep.
He does this very, very well. It's his comfort zone.
2 copies of Mirror and Crusader, a Spirit of the Labyrinth. There's kind of some flex slots in this deck of oddball creatures.
Yeah, but this is the card that holds it all together. It's Aether Vial. He has it on turn 1. Braverman with the Brainstorm. He's going to draw 3 cards very quickly.
It's funny watching these 2 decks in action because Craig's deck is about it's about Aether Vial about as much as Miracles is about Divining Top. So getting to watch the games where those 2 cards square off, which we're going to see right now, is really compelling.
Vial's up to 1. Wescoe will draw. Flicker Wisp is what he's found. Doesn't look like he has a port this game. Looks as though he has a Wasteland. No 2-drops either. So just a boring old Beta Plains. And pass the turn back over to Braverman. Braverman going to spin the top on the upkeep. He's setting up shop. Batterskull, Arid Mesa, and a Tundra. Looks like somebody's drawing a Batterskull. Yes, sir.
I mean, that's ambitious to think that you can get to that amount of mana against Death and Taxes.
Yeah. There's a Flooded Strand.
He is flooding out a little bit, so I understand this line of play, but with ports and Thalias, there's no guarantee that Phillip can get to the requisite mana.
There's the pump fake by Wescoe. No one to put into play. Caracas to the land. Wescoe sandbagging his wasteland. Very smart.
No reason to give away that information.
Not at all. Braverman going to sacrifice his Flooded Strand. Clearly not like the other cards on top of his deck, so we'll search out a land. For him, it's very important to go basic hunting. He's playing against a deck that does have wasteland. He will get a Plains here. We'll shuffle up and send it over Wescoe's way in just a moment. You can imagine that'll be spinning the top 2 as well. Take a look at these cards. Spell Pierce among them. Looks like a Dig Through Time also. Powerful card that helped him win game number 1. Braverman will draw. Looks like a Jace the Mind Sculptor. That one's pretty good too. He's going to play that one.
Well, I'm curious to see what Phil wants to do here because there are some risks. I mean, if he just brainstorms and Wescoe goes Vial in a Saravenger, kill your Jace, it's a bit of a mess. And I like him going up and Fade Sealing right now because he has to respect Craig putting something into play and attacking the Jace.
Yeah, Craig hasn't done anything else. It would make sense why he'd have a 2-mana spell. He'll activate the Vial. The Pump Fake yet again. The Vial's up to 3. No Pump Fakes now. You don't take Vial up to 3 unless you need to. Caracas the draw.
Craig's hand started off a little on the slow side and has not gotten any better.
Yeah. I think keeping this hand is certainly defendable because he does have Vial in it. There's a Mirran Crusader. We'll pass the turn back over to Braverman. Braverman going to draw a card. Spell Pierce is what he's found.
Curious to see Spell Pierce in the deck since Craig has very few cards to pierce. Maybe a concession to Cataclysm. Don't know if he went back to his sideboard and got it in, but typically one of the first cards to hit the bench against Death and Taxes.
Terminus will be the top card that does go back, so he's got his setup here. Wescoe considering making a move, but does have to be a little bit wary and won't Vial anything in. He's just going to let Mirran Crusader do his dirty work. Council's Judgment the draw.
At this point, I think Craig can probably sniff out one of two things. One, Phillip has a spot removal spell, in which case he wants to save his Flicker Wisp for fizzling a spot removal spell. Or Phillip has set up Terminus, in which case he doesn't want to deploy a second threat.
Jace down to 1. Wescoe looks like he's going to play a Wasteland. Yep. Going to go up to the Tundra. We'll float.
And if Craig does not use Council's Judgment on this Jace, he is showing incredible discipline.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to in this instance. You know, mana is floating here for Braverman. It looks like he's going to try to cast a spell. So he's going to Dig Through Time. So now 7 cards is what Braverman's going to look at.
It's really interesting. All of Craig's plays in this match suggest that he thinks he can just go toe-to-toe.
Yep.
That he doesn't have to panic anytime Phillip has Jason play for a few turns, is drawing some cards, that if Craig maximizes his resources, he can still play Magic against Phillip, even though most people go into immediate panic mode once Jace is online and race as fast as possible to get off the table. Craig feels like he's got the resources in hand to play.
So what happens here, for those of you guys curious at home, Craig's going to cast a Council Judgment, but the reason he's able to do this is Craig played a Wasteland. Phillip said, I'll float some mana. And he said, okay, that's fine. All of a sudden, Braverman says, okay, we're still in your second main phase. Before my mana leaves, I'll cast Dig Through Time, which means that we're still in the second main phase. So Craig is able to actually cast a spell, which is Council Judgment. Unfortunately for him, that will get hit by a Spell Pierce, and that will be the turn. So now we'll go back Braverman's way. He'll draw a card. He's got a Jason Top in play. He's got about 5 minutes to try to get the W. He'll start by brainstorming the Swords, Volcanic Island, and a Mountain added to his hand. His hand is stock loaded, though he does have to put 2 cards back.
Now we'll see if Craig is able to make use of these Flicker Wisps to fizzle some of Phillip's turns.
He's going to get creative.
Yes.
Braverman's going to sacrifice his Scalding Tarn and search up a land here. While he does that, which is a Volcanic Island, let you guys know that Brad Nelson just beat Eric Froelich 2-0. That'll put him on to another W and closer to making top 8. And Chris Van Meter looking to get back to the Pro Tour. Playing against Michael Majors, they're going to game number 3. Both those players X and 1. As Braverman now will cast a Brainstorm and find a Stoneforge Mystic and a Counterspell. Among other cards, 2 cards again will have to go back. Batter Skull among them. Seems to make a lot of sense after all.
Yep, can just Stoneforge that back up.
Braverman will just pass the turn back. Boy, his hand is good, I'll tell you.
But the issue is 5 minutes, 10 seconds.
Yep.
Is that enough time?
Flicker Wisp is going after the Sensei's Divining Top. That's going to be exiled for a little bit, and this is a pretty creative play there from Wescoe. However, this is very straightforward and still quite good. Swords Plowshares ×2. Get your creatures out of here. Wescoe will pass the turn back. Vile's going to stick at 3. Craig will draw a card. There's the plains for him. But he is flooding out a little bit this game. You can see the card selection here has been very powerful for Braverman. He's going to spin the top.
Well, the only way that Craig can hang once Phillip gets into these kind of card advantage slots is by getting his tricks to be worth multiple cards. But he hasn't had enough resources or been able to build up enough of a board to make that happen. And so when he's going his draw step against Phillip's draw step plus Jace plus Divining Top plus just more powerful cards in the deck in general, Craig's going to be hard-pressed to win.
The only thing Braverman doesn't have right now is lands. He's brainstorming like crazy, and you can see his hand. 2 Batter Skulls, a Preordained. Looks like Batter Skull and Preordained are going to go back. You see the Terminus. He's got a counter spell. He's going to play an Arid Mesa, so he does have a land. Looks like it's going to be Stoneforge Mystic now, so everything that Braverman doing is quite powerful. There is the Batter Skull. We're going to have Phillip shuffle just a little bit more. You can understand he's trying to get moving here a little bit.
Yep.
He can sense that he's winning this game. He just does not want to draw. Wescoe's going to activate his Vile on 3. It's a Flicker Wisp. Going to target the top again. Braverman is okay with that. There's the swords. Third one of those. Wescoe looking at 2 copies of Caracas. He'll untap and draw. Stoneforge Mystic is what he's found. He'll attempt to deploy that. See if Braverman has the mana for his counterspell. If he wants to cast it, he does not.
Perhaps saving his counterspell for just Cataclysm.
That's fair. It's one of the few cards that can actually get Wescoe out of this situation. There's Sword of Fire and Ice. Wescoe's going to attempt to deploy. Perhaps this sniffs out the counterspell.
Well, Phil wasn't willing to counterspell the Stoneforge Mystic. It doesn't make a ton of sense to counterspell the thing he's getting with the equipment. Or with the Stoneforge, rather.
Top is back. Spin it. Tundra Stoneforge in the top. Arid Mesa will get sacrificed. However, for Braverman, TikTok goes that clock as he searches up a mountain.
And Wescoe's at 28. You know, he's quite a few ways away. I mean, just on Batter Skull hits, we're looking at 8 turns. Phil can speed it up a little bit. I think he has a second Batter Skull, but it's still going to be tough. I think he can do it.
Yeah, it's possible. Terminus among these options. Tundra going to come in. It might be time for maybe a hardcast Batter Skull. And then slide in the other. Take a look at the top card here with Jace. That one stays on top. Fast turn back. Wasteland the draw. Don't mind that one too much. Attempt to equip. Looks like that's good. Be very surprised if Craig did attack here, though.
Not a lot to be gained.
Yeah.
Kind of an ambitious attack into the jaws of a 4/4.
There's Wasteland. Pass the turn. Let's activate the Mighty Mystic. There's Batter Skull. Germ token coming in. Braverman gonna spin his top. Happy with his configuration. He's untapping. He is drawing. Snapcaster Mage. Fate Seal U. We see this a lot with Miracles players. They try to get moving. Pass the turn back. Don't like that.
That might have been too fast of a turn there.
Yeah, don't like that at all. Doesn't have the time to mess around like this. Spirit of Labyrinth to draw. Another batter skull is going to come in. See, this is a situation where myself as a player, I'd probably get a little sloppy, but I got to get the job done, and I know that my decisions may not matter as much as they typically would.
Right. I just, even these things like spinning at the top here, I'm just not a huge fan of.
Now, there's a land. Looks like there are your attackers.
And that, I believe, is the clock hitting 0.
Yep. And I don't know if he's going to have enough time to get it done here is the issue.
Well, he's got this turn, assuming our clock is accurate. Craig gets turn 1.
There's a fate seal. Yeah, this is turn 0.
So Phillip gets turns 2 and turns 4. And I suspect Craig can defend himself for that amount of time.
Craig gonna untap. He'll draw.
And keep in mind, the turn before Phillip deployed the second batter skull, I believe he just passed. He did not attack with his batter skull.
So it's turn number 1. You can see the die at the top of the screen. Got our table spotter keeping track of that for you guys at home. Craig's draw was a flicker wisp, which actually functions pretty well for working his way towards the draw.
Just defense. And even if this is something that knocks you out of top 8 potentially, there's still top 16. There's implications. So
it's different things for different people, right?
Yes.
Braverman is looking for a Pro Tour invite, while Wescoe, well, we know he's on the Pro Tour. He's probably just looking for pro points. There's Flicker Wisp. It says, Jace, you need to leave. Move the sword over here. No attacking to be done. So that's a brand new Flicker Wisp. Pass the turn back. It'll be turn number 2. Looks like we're going to activate. So we're going to pick this up. I see what we're going to do.
Oh.
It's pretty adorable. There's a Terminus to clear things up. So what he's doing here in order of events for you guys at home, activate Stoneforge Mystic, put that on the stack, put Return Batter Skull on the stack. Or excuse me, Return Batter Skull, Stoneforge Mystic, and then Terminus. So Terminus will resolve first, Batter Skull's in his hand, and then the Stoneforge Mystic activation will resolve.
Great use of the stack.
Yeah.
There is still an issue here that this sets Phillip up to deal 8 damage on his next turn because he can move the batter skull onto his other batter skull, and then 8 points of damage the following turn. Craig's at 20. So he still needs help to be able to win on through turns 2 and turns 4. This is a nice play, but he needs a little bit more.
I believe Jace should be coming back here in just a moment from the Flicker Wisp. So there that is. Of course, that'll have 3 counters on it. So now it's turn 2.
And that was, I believe that Phillip had a Snapcaster Mage left over in his hand.
Gotta cast that.
And I think in that spot, he's just got to cast it because that puts him at 10 points of power to play. 2 batter skulls plus a Snapcaster Mage. That's 10 times 2 is 20 with the Jason play to play Unsummon Duty. Maybe a little tough to do because of the sword in play, but at least there's a plan.
Yep.
As it stands, I just think he's going to end up a little bit short of being able to kill Craig.
And there's the attack for 8. And it'll be attack for 8 next turn, too. And you're wondering where those 4 points of damage would come from. And it's the Snapcaster Mage that you alluded to.
Or a batter skull attack that Phillip gave up on the first turn.
Yep.
There were points in this game that Phillip could have picked up.
This is the top. Pass the turn back. Wescoe's going to untap. And Braverman's looking at the Terminus. He's got counterspell to cast. Vial's the draw. This is turn 3. Craig will, of course, just cast it and pass the turn back. You can see his hand, 2 copies of Caracas. Just pass the turn back. Braverman is going to spin his top. But, you know, it's all about knowing how to switch gears, change the focus, and do the math. That's going to be what ends up probably being Braverman's downfall here. You know, for him, he has to look for a concession from Wescoe now. He can't get the points of damage through. And for Wescoe, you know, would he lose this game? Absolutely, he would.
Right, but it's not like Craig did anything slow. He did nothing malicious. And there were a couple of spots there where Phillip gave up on attacks, didn't try to get aggressive as possible, spun his top when he had the game firmly in control. And all these things add up.
Yep.
When you're playing a deck like Miracles especially.
Yeah, it's going to be an extension of the hand. We'll see if Wescoe opts to concede here. We'll find out from our table spotter in just a moment. But for now, we'll come back to the booth. And we do find out that Wescoe does concede, as very clearly he was going to lose if there was another turn there. So a very nice thing and a nice gesture there for Wescoe. For Braverman, something to take away from this match, even though I liked his plays, I think that he played very well. Again, not every opponent's going to concede to you that instance, and that could end up being a draw where it shouldn't be otherwise.
Exactly. If Phillip ends up getting a draw there, there is no one to blame but himself.